thank you for everyone's patience. I would like to call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Education on September 19th, 2017 at 7:02 p.m. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Brady Barr.
Here.
Here.
Wright. Jasper.
Here.
Block.
Here.
Lowe.
Present.
Trammell.
Here. Mrs. Blakely, will you please lead us in the pledge?
And before we start our pledge tonight, we'd like to start with just a brief moment of silence. Rosalie Jones, the person who this building is named after, we just received word that she passed away today. So our thoughts are with her family.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Dr. Hitchens, are there any items to be added or removed from our agenda?
Yeah, in the consent agenda, there were a couple of minor changes that Steve there was one date that was incorrect in the personnel report, and there was also under donations, it said EDD donation, it was actually ECC, the early childhood donation, and those are the major changes. Oh, the
In
other one-
addition to, for a higher.
In addition, so there's going to be a couple changes to the personnel report. The public hearing on the budget we had at the prior meeting, so it's not an official public hearing, but people are still welcome during public comment to talk about the budget, but we can strike that item.
Awesome. All right, then the first thing I would like to do is I would like to invite Jen Seaton forward to talk to us about the Grace McWayne student helping Hurricane Harvey victims.
Hi. Thanks so much for having us. In light of all the recent tragedies with hurricanes and things going on and how it's affecting a lot of people, we had a really awesome 5th grade student come up with a really great idea, so we're going to let him tell you guys about it.
Awesome, thanks.
I decided to email Mr. Modoff my idea because I saw the news about Hurricane Harvey, and I was thinking about starting a fundraiser, and my mom was thinking the same thing. And once Mr. Modoff and Miss Seaton gave the go-ahead, I talked with my teacher, Miss Lundgren, in my class, and we made a plan. We made posters, and we counted the money at the lunch recess time. In 1 week, we had collected $926.74, and our grand total is over $1,000. My favorite part of the experience has been seeing this, my class and the whole school, and how much we raised for Hurricane Harvey.
That is so awesome, and you did not tell us your name.
Braden.
Great. Nice job, Brandon. Good job. I think that is all of our favorite thing is when our students come in and tell us the things that they are doing out in our community, showing what an awesome community of learners that we have out there. So Braden, thank you. You are to be commended.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is really awesome. Tonight we are going to go to public comments next. We do have 2 people for public comments. If there's anyone else that would like to address the board during public comments, please get a pink sheet from Kathy Scafidi. If you would like to address us, we ask that when you are called that you come to the table so that we can all hear your comments. We won't be addressing your issues tonight. It doesn't mean we don't take them seriously. If you'd like to further communicate with the district, we just ask that you see Kathy Scafidi and leave her your information. And we're also going to ask that anyone addressing the board, please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes so everyone has a chance to be heard. The first person I would like to call to the table is Andrew Moore.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrew.
All right, tonight I'm going to talk about gym class at Batavia High School because as of last year in my gym class, there's been a new grading policy that was assigned to us where you take your fitness test and then you set goals, and you are graded on whether or not you achieve those goals. If you achieve the goal in the test, you get an A, and if you don't, you get an F. But I was reading up on some state laws, and while it does say that fitness tests are used for goal setting and teaching goal setting, it also says fitness scores shall not be used for grading students or evaluating teachers, which I think is pretty against the law at this point to grade in that current system they have. And also it's teaching students that if they shoot low and do really poorly on their fitness tests on purpose, they can then set low goals and easily get an A in the class, which I think is just morally irresponsible to teach students, and it doesn't really help the community or anybody who is in those classes at all. Thank you.
Thank you. We always love when our students come and advocate. Andrew, I'm actually going to ask if you don't mind leaving your information with Dr. Newkirk. He's in charge of curriculum and instruction, and he's the perfect person to talk to about your concerns.
First person I've heard that from.
Oh, I will pass your information on to Dr. Newkirk. I actually forgot it was all down there. And I will ask him to reach out to you. Okay? Thanks for coming. Our next...
Oh, sorry, it's Nan and Joanne.
Oh, Nan and Joanne Spitz talking about Hall of Honor. Welcome.
Kathy.
Hello.
Joanne and I are here once again to thank the Board of Education for your support of the Hall of Honor. This is the third recognition of distinguished alumni, and we have selected deserving people from the nominations that were submitted by the public. And these 8 honorees represent a wide variety of successes. We have Francis Elbervosky, a 1934 graduate, Roy C. Bailey Jr., 1966, Paul Bergeson, 1979, Michael J. Fisher, MD, 1993, Tom Schmitz, 1958, Corey Williams, 1992. Those are the 6 alumni that have been selected. We always honor one staff member, and this year we're honoring John Heath, who served the district for 22 years from 1990 to 2012. And we have one friend, one extraordinary volunteer who served the district, and we are honoring Richard Johnson, who was the school board president. And so we're very happy that they are all being honored, and we have them doing various activities during the week of homecoming, riding the Park District trolley in the homecoming parade on Wednesday, October 4th. The actual, and following the homecoming parade, there's going to be a social gathering for anyone who wants to come and meet up with the honorees. That will be held at Pal Joey's following the homecoming parade. And then on Thursday, October 5th at 6:00 p.m., we will have our induction ceremony starting with a social gathering at 6 p.m. and great refreshments that are being provided by a number of Batavia restaurants and desserts being catered by our BHS culinary arts students. So that's a great variety of benefits that we have here in Batavia. And then the actual induction ceremony will take place at 7:30 in the Batavia Fine Arts Center. And then on Friday, October 6th, the honorees will again be introduced and honored at the football game. So it's a lot of wonderful dates to put on your calendar. We realize that staff and parents are busy with conferences that day, but they're welcome to join us at 7:30 at BFAC to come and honor these wonderful people. So we hope that we'll see all of you, and tickets are available either online or here at RJAC or at the door that evening. So a special thank you to Lisa and Sue and John, who serve on the Hall of Honor Committee, and we couldn't do it without all of your support, so thank you very much.
Pat Ferguson, one of the honorees, is performing a free concert at the VFW on Saturday night. It's a fundraiser for Hurricane Harvey. So he's straight from Nashville with his wife, so it should be a really good show, $20, and you have to go to the VFW to get it. And I don't need to say anything else because Nan Phillips is like the queen of sharing anything, and she gets everything always done perfectly.
We're out. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, it's been amazing the last 2 years. I have same expectations. All right, now I would like to invite Nancy Biancheri, the president of the BEA. Amy. Sorry.
Hi, Nancy.
I'm recording. I don't know where that came from.
All right, forgive me, I have a head cold, so I probably won't sound real good. Well, good evening. I have a couple of updates for you. I've been real busy the past week putting together committee members for several awesome, either new or repurposed committees. We're convening the new compensation review committee, so the officers of BA and I are meeting tomorrow to put that group together and the stipend committee. I met yesterday with Lisa Palazzi, and it was such a pleasure to see the gigantic pile of applications for the new repurposed Student Services Committee that's going to be working with ACEs, social emotional learning, and then adverse childhood experiences, and how we can train our staff and serve those students. And we picked 9 people, so 1 from each building plus early childhood. It was truly a treasure of, it was like beautiful reading these applications. And I sent letters to people who made it and people who didn't make it. And I think this is the one committee where people who didn't make it sent thank yous too. And people who, it was beautiful. So it just made me feel real good. And I'm excited about it because they're going to do good work too. I'm also, I just put together a calendar feedback group, so we'll have it set up the same way as last year, where there are representatives from every single building who go out, get feedback about the proposed calendar, bring it back, meet with Brad, and then kind of work through any issues or suggestions that they may have. So pretty excited about that. I do have one update. This is a sad update. We had to cancel our legislative breakfast this weekend. And it's kind of a funny reason and kind of not a funny reason, but because the state legislature had to go into all the extra sessions over the summer, and some of our legislators had to cancel their Disney trips. They all went to Wisconsin this weekend. They all were out of town because they finally had a weekend off. So we only had one legislator that could come. But we're going to reschedule it sometime later in the year, and or figure out a way to show resilience, which is that follow-up to Paper Tigers about the brain science behind trauma at sort of a bigger venue. So that will probably be good. At the state level and national level, there is a town hall for IEA people on Thursday with State Superintendent Tony Smith about ESSA. And if you guys aren't aware, they changed it again. They changed the parameters of ESSA. And so there are some different parameters in how ESSA needs to be implemented. And if any of you have any questions that you would like for me to ask Superintendent Smith, shoot them my way via email, because I'm going to be on that phone call and I will be taking notes, because it's, it's such an important thing, and it's still so up in the air with how it's going to get implemented in real life. I have one other quick announcement on the BEA end. I won a free class for this organization called Scarce, which does recycling, composting, environmental awareness classes. I won it over the summer at an IEA event, and so I basically offered it to somebody in BEA who is interested. So Julie Allholm is the proud recipient of the Scarce class, which she will then use in her classroom or use with her students in her program. And just 2 other really quick updates. This weekend, I am going to Springfield because I was chosen to serve on the legislative committee, which works to put together our legislative platform for the state level. So any educational issues that would be up for either students or teachers or our organization, we put what our priorities are for promoting legislation that's student-friendly and teacher-friendly. And then finally, I do start my NEA director position the first week of October, which is the worst week ever because it's homecoming week and parent-teacher conference week. But it's also super week, which means all the legislators are there. So the legislators that I will personally be meeting with when I go to Washington, it's once October, once in February, and then in the summer for more of an extended period. Bill Foster, Randy Hultgren, and Raja are my three, which makes sense because they're in my area. But we'll be talking to them about DACA and some other educational issues that affect our students. So thank you very much. I'm officially losing my voice. I'm done.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
We are going to move on to our student ambassadors, but before I give Chris the floor, unfortunately, we don't have Justin with us tonight, but I still wanted to do a shout out to Justin. We had already heard about our 3 National Merit semifinalists, and Sue had written a story about them, but we also got information on 12 commended students for the National Merit Scholarship Committee. And our very own Justin Chu was one of our commended students. So those of you from the high school here, give Justin a huge shout out because we're really proud. All right.
Did I see a Dremel on there?
I was going to say,
There was
there was a Dremel on there too, right?
But of course, you're not going to say that.
William Dremel?
And Chris, take it away.
So when Justin and I talked to you last, you guys heard all about the Frosh Fest and the new Link Crew program that we were in. Since then, we met with our groups for the first time that following week, and everything went really smoothly. A lot of the kids showed up again, which is really good. And our second meetings are coming up this week. So tomorrow we'll have the lunch and learn thing where we go in and get informed on everything that we're supposed to be telling the freshmen, and then tomorrow the crews will be met with again in our given classrooms, just helping the kids. And I think this one's going to be all homecoming based to prepare them for homecoming week, since the next one won't be until after. Also starting up, all the clubs are starting up again and getting situated for the new year. And the principal student advisory team, we had our first meeting, which was a lot of brainstorming, just various things that we wanted to focus on this year. And our next meeting, which is in October, we'll be narrowing down those focuses and picking the main ones that we want to go further on. Other things, the t-shirts for the Geneva versus Batavia game. We're doing a competition to raise money for Chip In and the Bulldogs Unleashed programs, and so we're gonna try to do the best that we can to beat Geneva any way possible. And then, and then homecoming's coming up pretty soon, so everybody's getting ready for. I know student council, we're getting ready for the Olympics on Monday, and then the parade on Wednesday, the pep rally Thursday, and then the dance on Saturday. So, other than that, everything's still getting in the swing of things for the new school year.
Awesome, Chris, you flew solo really well tonight.
Thank you.
All right, and then tonight will be, our next item is our consent agenda, which I'm actually going to turn back over to Dr. Hitchens.
So I just wanted to mention that the orchestra trip, we were, it said that the itinerary was attached. I just passed that over to you. And the other thing that we talked about was we have very generous community partners, and so during our consent agenda, you guys normally accept those donations, and tonight when Steve gets to that part of his, while he's reading the consent, he's going to call up Dave Andrews and Batavia Youth Baseball to talk about that donation. So when you get to that part, you're going to call up Dave.
Awesome. All right, well then I'm going to pass that back over to Mr. Harris. If you could-
Okay, 6.1 through 6.4 is the approval of the 9/13, 8/28 special meeting minutes, as well as the August 22nd special and regular meeting minutes. The personnel report, you can review that. There is one addition to that. We have hired Chelsea Dean as a Spanish teacher at the high school. She has been subbing. She's had some licensure endorsement issues she had to get worked out, but that's been worked out. So we're going to be hiring her for 159 days, and she will be paid a total of $36,625.04. So I'd like that added to the personnel report. 6.6 is our payroll and bills. 6.7 is the destruction of our closed session recordings from March 8th, March 10th, and March 23rd of 2016. And with that, if we can bring up Dave Andrews as well as Batavia Youth Baseball.
Thanks, Steve. This is Mike Law. He's the president of Batavia Youth Baseball, and we're here to just give you guys some good news. Give you a brief history. About 6 years ago, the district started a committee to look at athletic facilities at Batavia High School, and we came up with a grand master plan. And ever since then, things have kind of snowballed from there in developing our outdoor athletic facilities, at the high school property. It opened the doors to the sponsorship program that we have that obviously we all know about, and that's brought in a lot of private funds, non-tax-paying funds to help with the the improvements of the stadium. But really, what people forget is at the very start of that was Batavia Youth Baseball. They donated about $20,000 to the improvement of our baseball dugout, and that was actually the first project we did after we got the master plan finished. And so they really kick-started it, the improvements off with that. And then again, like I said, it's kind of snowballed from here. Mike's a volunteer. And a lot like you, he gets a lot of unsolicited opinions and advice of how to do his job. And so we're just very happy that obviously we have a long-standing partnership with BYB. They've been in the community for 52 years. Right? 61 years. And so they're one of the pillars in the community. And if you've been to our outdoor facilities, they are getting better, but if you've been to the freshman baseball field, it's not that great. And so they graciously donated $14,000 in addition to that $20,000 initially to do the improvements at our freshman baseball field. And that should be taking place here in a couple weeks. I'm getting a nod that it's going to take place in a couple weeks. And so you'll see a lot safer facility, which is probably the biggest issue if you've been at that freshman baseball field. The foul balls go flying out, and it's just it's not, it doesn't look very good. So it's going to be an upgrade aesthetically as well. And so hopefully, again, just moving step by step, piece by piece to getting that master plan, fully appreciated. So I don't know if Mike, if you want to.
Yeah, just thank you very much to Dave for the partnership. About 4 years ago or longer, I walked into his office and said, what can we do to make our relationship stronger with the baseball program? We noted that some of the fields were in kind of poor condition and we're trying to get better. And one thing we really wanted to do was have our junior Bulldogs move up to really nice fields. So we're kind of committed to that. That's really a Dave. Dave really stepped up. He's been a big supporter of our program. His son plays in our program, plays with my son, and
he's on the team.
He does plays quite well. As a matter of fact, we should get this in the minutes. That team won in Omaha this year, which Mr. Lowe's son was also on this year. It was the first time a Batavia team ever placed, and we won first place. So wanted to make that note. But just thank you very much for the partnership. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the high school and the athletic programs.
And just one last thing with that partnership, also remember that as part of this partnership that they're in our field house every Sunday morning during baseball season, for 4 to 5 hours. And so it is getting community use, which again was the intended purpose of, our athletic facilities. And again, it's just without them, stepping up that initial time, we couldn't be doing what we're doing now. So just wanted to let you all be informed of what's going on. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, in addition to that donation, we also had a $500 donation from Richard and Melissa Chens for supplies at the Early Childhood Center. And then Chip In donated $9,445 for support for RMS, BHS, with SEL supports and tutoring. 6.9 is an overnight field trip to Theater Fest in Normal, Illinois. 6.10 is overnight field trip approval for an orchestra trip to maybe a little bit more desirable location, Nashville, Tennessee. Just being honest. 6.11 is the Graphic Edge and Under Armour contract, and then finally 6.12 is the approval of the consent agenda.
All right. Are there any items on our consent agenda tonight for renewal or for presentation?
I just had one, and can I ask Dave Andrews, since he's here?
Well, I'm not going to say no, so sure. Wait a minute.
I just, on the Under Armour one, the contract, I mean, it's something that we've been using, and they're giving us a decent price. Is it something that you're specifically happy with? you've been accustomed to, or do you do anything else with checking other places?
We are very happy. It's Graphic Edge, which is actually the vendor that we're actually using.
Okay.
And they do the job for us of going out and getting that best price. And so just through their mass ability to be able to get the best price, they've landed on Under Armour. So we're confident we are getting the best price with Under Armour product. And they're a very good, reputable company, Graphic Edges. The sales representative is very attentive to our needs, to all of our coaches' needs, and so that's very important, obviously, for the size of the organization that we're running there, and the amount of dollars that we're buying from them. And so we are very, very happy with Graphic Edge and specifically the Under Armour product.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the personnel changes that Steve gave us earlier.
So second.
Moved by Lack, second by Blakely. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Feedback.
Yes.
Blakely.
Yes.
Dremel.
Yes.
Gessler.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
Is that out of order? It took me a minute to figure out if that was everybody. The next item on our agenda is our reports. Dr. Hitchens.
So we have 3 agenda items here. The first is our FOIA request. This is every month. You guys monitor the requests that came in to make sure that we're honoring them. And the second is the treasurer's report. Again, those are monitoring reports that don't require action, but something that you look at every month. So are there any questions about those monthly reports? Then the third one, we will have some discussion on the policy report. So this is a lengthy one, so it's broken down into several sections here, 4 sections to be exact. The first 3 I'm bringing to you. I'm requesting that you review these, and then the 4th section is the one that was in the parking lot for a while, and you guys asked to review it, so we brought it back. So the first section that you see there, this would be a first reading for those 4 policies. They're all press recommendations. The first one, 6080, was one that we did deviate from press. We had, I believe, 1 sentence. And so the press one maybe gives a little bit more guidance to the teachers. So we just are recommending that we adopt the press one. And then 61807, 275, and 8070, those were ones that we did have the press version, but they've made updates. So the extended instructional programs, there were some changes in school code, orders to forego life-sustaining treatment. That was, the lawyers got together, not ours, but the ones that, recommend the press changes, and they're recommending those changes based on probably some cases. And then finally, our website needs to be ADA accessible, and so that update was made to 8070, but Sue knew that, and she's been working on that for a while. So those are the ones that I'm recommending that you would adopt at our next meeting based on press. Any questions about those 4?
Those are pretty straightforward and rather dry.
They are pretty, and then the next 3 are also from press. I won't bring those back for a vote unless you have a concern, because procedures are the ways that we implement the policies, and those don't require a vote, but we bring them to you so you know how we're implementing your policies. So the first is, they're all from press basically, and you can see the reasons why. One of them is about waivers, one of them is about National Terrorism Advisory, and service animals is the third. So hearing no comment, I think we'll just adopt those 3 procedures, and then I'll bring back the other 4 policies for next time. I did have one board member that mentioned that in the teaching about controversial issues, it says that the superintendent is in charge of making sure that we're teaching controversial issues properly, and so he suggested or designate, and I like that, so we'll make that change for next time. Or designate.
Superintendent or designate.
Just like adding 2 words after the second one. In there.
Yes, exactly. Superintendent or designee right at the very beginning. So the next section has been maybe a 6-month progress where we've been going through and pulling out policies that we've been reviewing for quite a while. And all of them that you see there, when we get a policy from press, it ends in the number 0 or the number 5. Anything that doesn't end there generally is a homegrown policy. And all of these were homegrown. None of these in the next list are from press. And so when they were written, we had a policy committee that met every month, and they wrote their own policies, and there were reasons why we needed these at the time. But now I'm saying, you could see in that chart on the right-hand side, I'm showing you that they appear somewhere else, so I would like to, we haven't updated them in probably some of them more than 10 years, and we don't usually refer to these, we would refer to the other thing on the right-hand column. So I would like to remove those. I don't know if there's any that you want to talk about there.
I like it when we look in one place for it, so that we're not trying to determine which one supersedes the other.
Right.
And everything's covered.
Yep.
And 0 and 5, because we
Right, exactly. Okay, so the one that we definitely want to have a discussion about would be something, like I said, that was in the parking lot for a while. So the board said, gave us direction that they wanted to review the extracurricular and co-curricular activities. I believe Kathy is going to lead this discussion because we just had a board workshop about how to engage in discussions that would give the administrators direction. So I'm assuming this will end up in, if there's a policy rewrite that needs to happen, we would bring that back to you at a later meeting. And I'll turn it over to Kathy.
So I'm assuming everyone had a chance to look at the philosophy and the implementation parts of this policy. So it was recommended that we just start with kind of a straw poll of, did you have a chance to read it, and do you feel that the policy as written meets our strategic vision and goals?
So we want to know if this, Steve will be meeting with the stipend committee, and there's some things laid out in the teacher's contract that is the charge that's already written into the contract for that committee. But we also would like to give them the board's philosophy about extracurriculars, because you guys do value extracurriculars. You designate quite a bit of your resources towards them, and we want to make sure that the team, the committee that's been formed, knows what your philosophy is on extracurriculars. So,
and there could be part of our extracurricular policy that could drive the conversation and the direction that we wanted to give to that stipend committee.
So what was your question about the straw poll? What do you want?
Well, first of all, do we feel that this policy philosophically addresses our long-term goals, vision, strategic plan?
And you just want a yes, no?
Yes, no. Let's just start there.
So if the answer is yes, then you won't be.
If the answer is yes, so I feel like there's a couple of parts. For one, we have a philosophy statement. Second, we have an implementation statement, and then there's just sort of details. So first of all, is the philosophy what we want? Second of all, are we comfortable with the implementation statement? And then third, out of that, is there any philosophical or direction that we want to give to the stipend committee as they're doing their work to ensure that it's in alignment with our philosophy? Does that make sense? What I'm asking.
Okay, so I'm going to answer this. Tell me if I'm answering correctly.
Yeah.
I do believe that I believe the philosophy is written. I agree with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think how we measure that is an area I would work on. Or would that be the implementation? Or
Well, no, I think that's...
I don't know. I mean...
So you're saying you like the philosophy, but you would like to maybe discuss whether or not we're living our philosophy? And whether we're effectively... Or how do we know if we're living our philosophy?
Yes. I'm trying to answer the questions like we've been taught. So, okay, bear with us. Okay.
Just a little fun. All right, so Tina, you like the philosophy?
Yeah.
Chris?
I think that there may be a couple items worthy of discussion in the philosophy section.
Okay, so you're a maybe. You'd like to discuss. Sue?
Yes.
You're a yes, you like the philosophy statement. Okay. Bob?
Yeah, philosophy sounds pretty solid.
Okay.
Well, we're breaking the rest
John
down, right?
Gasper? Yeah, we're going to break down.
Philosophy, yes.
Okay.
May I just quickly just throw out my two thoughts on
Please do. Yeah, please do, because other people might be like, oh, yeah, I didn't do that.
So the two thoughts that I had in the philosophy is whether or not we wanted to have anything in there regarding economics as far as an entry and general philosophy on how we address our stipends. You know, whether or not we want to stay, both whether or not we want to exclude kids because of economics if they can't afford to play. I know that we have things in place to help out those in need, but whether or not
Actually
there are
formalize it in policy.
yeah, and then the other, and also along the economics of whether or not we want to make it a goal to stay competitive with neighboring districts or similar districts in the way that we handle stipends.
Okay, so
You're saying
let's,
possibly update one to say not as many students as possible, but all students?
Not limited to just skill level and ability, regardless of skill level and ability, but also economics.
so regardless of skill level, ability, or financial.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously there will be limitations, but it can be a goal that we can strive for.
Okay, so then let's, adding that, is there a consensus that we would like to talk about the economic impacts and possibly formalize them into our policy? Sue?
No.
Tina? I can come back if you want to think. I'm not
Yeah,
getting
give
on the
me a
spot.
second, real quick.
Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss that.
Okay. John Gasper?
I'm just trying to process what effect it really would do.
That's what I think I'm struggling with, because
I mean, if
are we
we're-
trying to put in like
if we're
the
talk-
donations we
Okay,
get?
we have the opportunity, so we can go right to the parking lot. We can talk about, in a big picture way, the economic impact of decisions that we make and not put them in this policy.
True.
Because I guess my question is, how,
I'm driving to that parking lot.
no,
No, not you, that's Sue.
that's with,
Chris, can you give me an example?
yeah, I think I need to hear what you're thinking.
I'm trying to figure out what you're
Clarify,
driving at.
expand. We'd like to do this.
There's a kid who plays football and runs track, and they don't fall into the assistance where they get full assistance, but they can't necessarily afford to pay for both of those. Do we say, well, you only can do the one that you can afford, or do we come up with some type of plan that may be able to accommodate that student?
Wouldn't that be in the implementation part instead of the philosophy part?
Well, I mean, and in the
So I'm just- I'm-
under the philosophy, I would say that the skill up, choosing to organize things so that we have the maximum number of people participating, regardless of their skill level and ability. I think that would fall into the same category.
So that's really the question, John. Do you view that the economic aspects of it should be part of our philosophy? Or are you saying that's very nuts and bolts and that should just be part of our implementation?
Because our philosophy does specifically call out, regardless of skill level and ability.
What if we drop it right after choosing and put a period, and therefore the philosophy is regardless of anything? We want to make it available to as many students as possible, period.
Yeah.
Because if we're mentioning skill level and ability.
Oh, they're choosing and then just stop right there.
Because you're either going to be inclusive by listing all the ands, or just leave it at choosing. We want to serve as many as possible, period.
And that kind of open-ended and it covers any future.
It's more philosophical in nature.
Well, I think that I'm sorry.
I read it just.
No,
I personally think it would have to be in implementation.
No, I'm saying take it.
Because you're talking finances.
There's a reality
And
that
it's not a philosophy.
that dropping that is not addressing the financial aspect specifically. That's just broadening our philosophy, which is perfectly acceptable if that's what we're talking about. But right now we're talking about, do we want to specifically focus on the financial aspect of this policy in our philosophy statement?
Not bad.
No.
Okay, so
I learned tonight.
So then I would say, do we want to drop the skill level and ability also out of there? Why are we?
Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. So
Okay.
I'm just going to set that
So then
aside. It's
I
not
will-
that we're not going to talk about it, but right now we're talking about, so specifically financial, should it be in our philosophy statement?
I'm going to switch to no.
Yeah, I'm going to just say keep it how it is.
Okay. So now, Chris, you have so we're in agreement, financial aspects would not go in our philosophy statement, correct? Okay, so we're good there.
And then the other thing that I would wanted to bring up is whether or not we want to put an emphasis on character development, both in our goals for our students and for our selection of faculty members to lead those students. Whether or not we want to say that, character development and strong character is important to us. And how that phrased, I don't know, but
So you're saying we don't address the character aspect and you're wondering if we should add it?
yes.
All right, let's do another straw poll. Sue, would you like to discuss further adding a character aspect?
Oh, sure, why?
All right, Tina?
No.
Bob?
Yes, I think we should add a character component.
Only because I think it's there. Sorry.
Well, I didn't assume that you were just ignoring character. John,
You never know.
you would like to specifically address a character aspect in our
Number
policy?
3. I guess what's character? Pillars? Yeah, is that what you're thinking?
I'm going to say no for this reason. I'm going to say no because if we're hiring teachers who are becoming our coaches, we're already probably doing that. So I don't know if it's necessary to do that unless those coaches are coming from outside. That would be my only concern, but I'm hoping, so I mean, that's my only caveat to what my vote is per se. So I'm going to say I'm not for favor for adding it in here because I think as a teacher or somebody on staff already, we've already got the character.
Bob, what were you thinking?
Can I add a little flavor to this? I think that maybe Chris is going for with his points is that I think as we move past this part, we're going to be getting into some accountability and measurable and monitoring things. I think including parameters or getting rid of some parameters that focus on skill and ability and not financials and things that focus on character gives us some kind of foundation in our philosophy to do some measuring and accountability and monitoring later.
I guess I looked at number 3 as fulfilling that requirement. But if you want to add a couple more words of the pillars to number 3, I guess, because in number 3, it's saying what we're looking for in each of our athletes and co-curricular students.
So
we also talk about optimizing skill development and the balance between skill development and competition, but that also is a great place to talk about character development and reinforcement as well.
So we don't at this moment have to actually rewrite this policy, but we can make a request that a specific focus or a specific reference to character development is part of our philosophy statement.
So it is, so just to say one thing, if you look below, the press policy is there, and I think if I had to go back, I don't remember this discussion, but your policy from the word implementation down, and I'm not sure why that word implementation was chosen because that's not really about implementation, that's like further philosophy statements, in my opinion. So I think what happened was the local board before you guys created those 7 philosophy statements, and then you just tacked press on underneath it.
So press starts with implementation, you said?
Press starts with the word implementation.
Okay.
But press doesn't use the word implementation. That was just something that was placed here.
To sort of explain, like,
Why
here's
it's
our
different.
philosophy.
Here's a list of
and
7 things, and then here's a list of 4
Okay,
things.
so she's saying press,
Oh,
this is
okay.
actually press policy, philosophy is our policy.
So if you look at number 3 under your philosophy, and you look at number 1 under implementation,
That's
kind of same thing.
That's what I guess that's where
So
I was viewing it.
actually-
It didn't say characters or pillars, but
Right, so we
the
addressed it
words are there.
twice.
but
We're a
we
little
could
punky.
Change the
I was going
words.
to say, do we want to start with just requesting that these are consolidated into one, just simplified so that they're not redundant and
Okay, so here's what I want to do. Are there any, so everyone likes the philosophy and the implementation, that we'll call it that. Everyone likes the underlying goals that are in this policy.
The
Is
inferred
that what I'm hearing?
principles. The inferred principles.
Principles,
sure.
thank you. There we go. And even some of the explicit ones. So other than the fact that it does not specifically mention character, we like all these principles. Are there any principles that are actually missing that we would want to be added?
I mentioned my 2 concerns.
Well, and there is fees, so it's not as specific, and we can get to that in a minute, but in terms of principles.
I think my only thing was 5, and that was how is that being measured?
which is, yes, okay, so measurement we'll get to in a minute, but let's go back to principles. Are we happy with the principles that this policy is?
Okay, so that's the difference, that part. Yes.
Is there anything that anyone is concerned is not there and would want to discuss adding? Okay, so the first thing, I'm going to make a list. The first thing we would like is this somehow clarified and perhaps cleaned up. We really like the philosophy is what I'm hearing, and it doesn't sound like the implementation covers everything that we want this to say, so it's not that we're asking to scrap it, but let's not be redundant and let's make this have a little bit more flow. So mishmash, perhaps the process.
Do you want to have a board member work with us, me on that? or-
I would, but let's figure out all of the things we want to cover and then see who's comfortable and excited about doing that work. All right, so the first thing I'm hearing is that philosophy and implementation, all of the principles are there. We would like them to be clarified and written more cleanly, and I did not get an answer on do we actually want the word character mentioned? Chris?
Yes.
Sue?
That's fine. Sure.
Bob? John?
To add that?
If we somehow add the specific addressing of we're trying to build character.
Build character?
Well, that character is important for all.
Or the character is important. Okay, then. Clarity, character is important. We're not trying to build character, we just want to...
Yeah, that is an important concern of the board for all participants, whether you are a parent, a participant, or a sponsor.
All right, so combine philosophy and implementation to a cleaner, less redundant statement, and somehow add that character is important. Okay, so we're good on philosophy, we're good on the big picture. Let's go hit on Chris's financial aspect. Fees are mentioned in the implementation part.
But we're going to take out implementation.
Correct, but we said, my understanding was, every point under philosophy and every point under implementation we were comfortable with, we just thought that they were redundant and not always clear. So we're asking to add a specific point about character being important and stop being redundant. So somehow rewriting those so they flow better. Correct? Is that my understanding? Am I speaking correctly? Bob's nodding. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's...
So the financial aspect is mentioned in point 2 of the implementation.
Well, okay, so let me
Oh,
just
but
ask
actually
this.
fees are only related to, I was not reading clearly. Fees are only related to having those. It just, that's how the superintendent or her designee shall approve those.
Okay, so let me ask a
I
question.
didn't read that clearly.
When you... Never mind, I answered my question.
Okay. So we're back to, this does not specifically talk about fees charged to parents.
Okay, but if you were to look at number 3,
Yeah.
is that just the district running the program, or would that mean the district has to have
Which section?
under extra and under the press policy section?
Oh, we didn't get that far yet.
Yeah, we're still under implementation.
We're under philosophy and implementation because that's kind of our visionary statement.
If we're not in a big time crunch, may I recommend that we clean this up first and then have the discussion? Because I think it might be easier to have a clear discussion if we are actually looking at the same thing, because there's...
We need to know what kind of fees you want added in, what your fee statement.
No, because, well, I don't think that needs to be done now. I agree with Chris, because if we're going to combine all 3 of these sections, I'd rather...
Well, right now I think we're going to add first 2.
Well, and
But why wouldn't we add in the second part? Because it's very...
Which part?
This extra, the press policy section.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, no, because now she's talking about extracurricular and co-curricular.
Because if you look at those 5 things listed, those are the things that we're actually still talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm wondering, do we even want to just go with the press policy and start over? I mean...
Okay.
I don't think we need to start over, because I think we have a really good base. I just think we need to, like you said, clean it up and make sure it's not being...
Right.
Some of the things are being said more than once. Some of the things are...
Almost contradictory.
Yeah, so...
Or covered
All right, so I agree and I like that. So I would...
Because then I don't know what our goal would be until we clean it up.
I would like to have a board member for sure sit and work on this policy with Dr. Hitchens and, I don't know, I'm assuming, yeah, whoever you choose. I don't
Just
need to
me.
decide for you. Is that just you? All right, because you love policy. So is there anybody that would like to pick? Oh, Bob. All right, awesome. So
One piece of clarity, the only difference between the press policy and your policy, well, except for that philosophy section at the top.
Yeah.
At the bottom, they have one extra criteria, and it says the district has sufficient financial resources for the activity. Would you like us to incorporate that?
That's the question. That's what I was talking about
That's the only
here.
piece that's missing between.
And that's what my question was, is that piece cover what Chris is concerned about?
I think he's talking about the financial
impact on families.
Impact on families. That one talks about, can you guys afford it?
Well, actually,
And that's what
I'm
that was-
concerned with both ends of that.
Okay.
Right.
So it sounds like we should probably.
So I don't
put that
think,
in.
so I think that you're going to end up writing it to ensure that all of these, I would agree, that the philosophy, the implementation, and this press policy, where it actually says press policy, are all included as an actual policy statement.
Right.
And it doesn't have to say philosophy, it doesn't have to be whatever. Okay. We'll give you two the wherewithal to go write that, and you're going to kill it.
And then we're going to come back and we'll discuss.
At the next meeting, if we are happy with the way that the policy is written, then we are going to be talking about measurements, so that we can give clarity to the stipend committee, the things that we're looking for, so that we are confident that our policy is being implemented and that we have data and information so that we can say, yes, we're doing this with fidelity.
Great.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are we good? So first you're going to rewrite the policy, then we're going to come back, Bob, and talk about like, all right, awesome, we love our policy. I have a feeling we might be giving some specific direction to administration. This is just something we don't really report on.
Oh, sorry, I said sold.
Oh, I thought you said so.
No, sorry, sold. I'm in.
So for the measurement piece of it, so just so you know, the stipend committee knows that you are asking for that, so maybe we wait to see what they come back with, because as a part of, it's in the teacher's contract that the stipend committee, one of their goals is to develop guidelines for evaluating clubs and programs.
So do you know what their deadline is?
Yes. Is there a time?
By the end of this year, because they have to reevaluate.
We don't even have the group yet. I'll be getting those names this week. So we'll be meeting probably beginning of October. So it'll take a little time.
I would like to at least talk about it a little bit, maybe because...
Right, I think the one thing that is a little bit nebulous for us is what does it mean for them to evaluate that? So we might have like a list of like, these are the things we're concerned about, and they may not be specific direction, but like, here are the things we're thinking about, and obviously one of them being financial, that we can at least give you a sort of guiding principle.
Be fantastic.
Maybe that will help the committee a little bit,
Direction
knowing
given
what
to us would be wonderful, yeah.
what the board is looking for.
So we'll look at the policy, we'll come up with some guiding principles that we're all committed to in terms of living out this policy, and then we can talk about if there's any of those guiding principles in regards to the measurement.
So what you could expect next time would be a draft policy, and you guys would bring us just some ideas about what's important to you about these clubs that would be included in a measurement.
Sound good? Everyone's going to be thinking about this? You guys were spot on, very focused, very effective. I love it. Anything else on this policy before we move on? All right, you guys ready for another discussion?
Nope.
I am.
So good at that one. All right, next item on our agenda. We actually had an opportunity in our first meeting tonight to do some talking about this Facilities Commission, and we actually said maybe it shouldn't even be called the Facilities Commission. Can you recap?
Sure.
You took notes, right?
Yeah, I will go back, and I'll go back to February when the Capital Projects Committee came to us and said they can use a little bit more guidance when it comes to making decisions. And so then they said that might be a Facilities Commission. So we've had several board meetings with different iterations of what that might look like, and we really couldn't come to a consensus. So at a board training workshop that was that happened today prior to this meeting, we talked about how to make decisions in that context when you know that if somebody's coming to you and asking for direction, and we were really having a hard time to figure out how to give that committee some good direction. And so what we talked about at this meeting was framing a charge for the group. So not, the board doesn't necessarily need to decide how many meetings will it be, who's on the commission, what are the outcomes necessarily. when really the purpose, all the board needs to do at this point is to determine what's the purpose, why are we talking about this? Because that's important, why are we talking about it? So we went back to clarify that, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard was the purpose of these discussions is to provide clarity to the Capital Projects Committee. 3 of the members are in here right now, so you guys need to provide clarity to the Capital Projects Committee so that they can determine their return on investment, their ROI, for their different buildings and sites. So when they're doing a project, that will guide them in knowing whether or not they're going to get a good return on their investment. For example, if we know that we're tearing down a field somewhere, not a building, a field somewhere, and then you wouldn't really put a lot of money into that field because that would be a bad ROI. If you're getting rid of that field, you wouldn't want to put a new backstop on. But we had that facility's vision. We know that that field is staying where it's at, so we were able to accept that donation because we know we're going to get a good return on that investment because that field will be here for the long haul.
And then as a larger, I'm going to jump in for a minute there, as a larger visionary topic, we did want to talk about the 21st century learning and what that would look like. We just realized that was a bigger topic that should not be specifically tied only to this, that conversation might drive some of this or might inform some of this, but that they're not meshed together forever.
Right, so as we reflected on the board's conversations, we were biting off more than we could chew with that one, trying to put one committee together that solved way too many purposes, or,
serve too many purposes
and tried to solve too many problems. So we did have some clarity that the one thing that needs to come out of this is clarity for the Capital Projects Committee. And so what that will look like will be a plan that goes beyond 5 years. Because right now, the only plan that the Capital Projects Committee is working on is a 5-year plan. They're really looking for something a little bit longer, a longer vision. So I think a great example is what Dave talked about. There is a athletic, the outdoor facilities at the high school. There is a plan in place that, they're tackling one piece at a time because they have that vision. We know that where all the pieces go and we can make improvements to those pieces. So again, the purpose of this group, whatever we decide to call it, the purpose is to provide clarity to the Capital Projects Committee so they know if they're getting a good return on investments of their projects. And then what we hope to give them is a plan that's a 5+ year plan for facilities in the district. We still need to talk about who's going to have a voice in whatever that is, if it's a committee, we're calling it a facilities committee. We need to talk about the deadlines and what the accountability is, what the final product would look like. And a suggestion was that Kathy appoint a board member to put that charge together, and then we talk about that charge as a whole. So we're not having the discussion of all 7 of you at the same time. We really did get a lot of good feedback from you, so it's time to turn it over to a board member and some staff and come back with the charge.
The only one area that I'm wondering if we do want to talk about, because I feel like it's part of a bigger picture, is we may want to talk about what voices are heard, whether or not the board has a philosophy on that, or whether we are comfortable having a board member work with administration to bring back a plan, which of course then we could still change. But I know there was some passion about whose voice was going to be heard, and I want to make sure that we are not already all in consensus as to whose voice should be heard, but we don't communicate that clearly, and then we steal their chance to actually bring back good work. So, Sue, did you have a strong opinion about whose voice was heard in this process of our 5+ year plan for our facilities?
I think it should be a board, I don't even know that it has to be a board member's voice being heard, but I want a board member representing them on the committee. In fact, they don't necessarily need to speak or anything, just sitting there. Also, somebody from, I don't want to just say the BEA, but maybe from.
So you're talking, we don't even have to be that specific.
Okay.
You're saying you'd like a broad voices
yes,
heard.
Broad
you think that's valuable and important in this process?
Yes, certainly the community,
okay.
Parents, just Let's just say the more the merrier.
Okay. No, because we need to, if we're saying go back and bring us a plan of how we're going to talk about this, and everyone is saying, no, I expected community on there, and we don't address that, then we're going to let them bring back a plan that doesn't address what we all had in our heads.
Can I ask?
So I feel like that's the only point that we were passionate about before when we talked about this, that I want to make sure we're not giving misguided direction.
Just to make sure that we're not providing too specific of direction when it comes to who should be involved, do we want to give this to the administration and let them come back with what they envision? And that way, they may say, all right, we already have a plan for this aspect of our facilities. And then these other areas, we still need to vet out a little bit. And then who do we want to get involved in that portion of it? So rather than...
That is certainly an option, Chris, but again, what I'm trying to clarify is if everyone sitting here is like, this absolutely is a community activity, let's make sure we're calling it that. If you're like...
Okay, I'm saying it's too early at this point to...
So you're saying it could go...
Can we read the language of the charge again to determine what the voice possibly component even might be?
So,
to give clarity to...
You're saying that, what we're saying is that the capital improvements, the capital projects committee needs clarity in their work. They need to be able to measure the return on investment for their projects. So we're trying to give clarity. So the next question is, how's that going to happen? Well, that would happen if we had a plan that was beyond a 5-year plan.
So the only question that I'm thinking about that I would want to address is, because we've already talked about this and because there is such passion for having our community represented in that, it may be completely valid what Chris said, like it's too early to tell. But if there is a majority of board members sitting here saying, absolutely, there's no point in going forward if this is not a community project, then let's at least address that now so that we're not sending off on a plan where secretly we're like, oh, but there's no way that could meet my needs because it's not a community plan.
But we're looking for voices to give clarity to that board on how to measure their ROI.
That committee.
That committee, sorry, yes,
Right.
that committee.
Because that committee can't do that?
Well, no, I'm just trying to
No,
figure out
I am too.
what the voices are that would be providing the clarity.
So how will they decide whether or not it's a good ROI? If somebody says, we're like, oh, we should be ripping up a field because of whatever, then is that something we think, like, maybe we'd want community voice, but we don't care, we're not ready to decide that yet? Or are you adamant? Because like I said, I'm partly jumping, in the future, I don't know that we'd have this discussion at this point, but I'm jumping off of our previous discussion, so I don't want to set them up for failure before they even start, because you're like, well, wait, I thought we were...
I just don't know, yeah, I guess I'm not adamant about defining voice right now.
So you're saying it might be too early?
Might be too
So
early.
like we can make the plan and decide later whether or not what the scope of the voice and whatever is.
Right, I still think we're at the outer layer of the onion.
That's fine. And Chris, you're saying you think it might be too early?
Correct.
Tina? I do too. All right, and John?
I think it's too early.
Awesome. Okay, so Sue, I hear that you've got thoughts on it, which might be really valuable.
That's fine.
But I know you're flexible too. So who would like to? Can I? Unless someone's really passionate, Sue, you'll work with. All right. So Sue's going to work with creating that plan. High-fiving. We're also building superintendent board relationships in this process.
Team of 8.
All right, so when are you thinking that you will bring the plan back to us?
We do have 2 October meetings, so we'll spread out we'll be bringing back extracurricular, we're going to bring back a facility vision here, a charge statement for that. There are 2 CNI reports coming your way in October, so we'll balance those between the October meetings.
Okay, so are we fine that at one of the meetings in October we'll address both of those topics? We will leave the actual exact date to your discretion, Dr. Hitchens. We don't want to give you as much business as possible. All right.
And maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse, but we have a facilities meeting Thursday, I believe, and perhaps we can nail down when we kind of need an answer by, so that when it's actually going to
Like when that information...
Yeah, when the big ticket item is coming up that we're going to want an answer on.
Okay.
And perhaps that will spur the timeline.
All right, that's good. So any other comments on that? We know when those items are coming back. We're going to be doing our work. We good? You're bringing her. All right, well then let's go. Then let's adopt the budget, Tom. Tony, only action item on our agenda tonight, and we have beat this topic to death. We've talked about it over and over. Are there changes?
There are changes, significant changes in terms of what our surplus will be, and I'll get to that. Just to give you a recap of where we are in terms of a budget. This is actually, of the budgets that I've had the privilege of working on, this is my favorite budget.
Who would have thought?
This budget, I believe, in my opinion, represents real progress toward managing our fiscal resources to support our district in a strategic way. Whereas previous budgets were kind of status quo budgets where we held things in kind of place and kind of barely, got from one year to the next. I feel like the elements are coming together where we can start to manage the various components of the cost control and do that within our revenue growth, which is essentially inflation, which inflationary increases that come from local property taxes. In summary of the budget, it's $105 million, which is it's a heck of a lot of money. 15 million of that, however, is what are considered on-behalf payments, and so that's what we anticipate as my best estimate of what the state of Illinois will owe this year for pension costs. So that's a pretty healthy chunk. We're required to budget that, but it does skew some things where in terms of it's very hard to keep track of numbers in the budget because money we don't really see. It's paid, it comes in as a revenue and goes out as an expenditure, but it's really not a revenue or expenditure, it's just paid on our behalf. So really our budget is 90 million. And the vast majority obviously is raised locally, and that's obviously a profound burden that is placed on our local property taxpayers, but that's just how we do it in Illinois. It's not a Batavia thing. I know that, being a taxpayer in Batavia, I always grimace when I pay my tax bill. I just did a couple weeks ago. But that's not a Batavia thing, that's just a state of Illinois thing. We're key factors in terms of revenue. Generally speaking, we're going to see about a 0.8% increase in revenue in totality. That's about $600,000. Of course, that excludes TRS, those on-behalf payments, as I mentioned. Local property taxes up 3.4%, or 1.1 million. But keep in mind that largely is driven by the addition to the outlet mall, and the Board of Education a number of years ago entered into a rebate agreement where we have to pay $3 million in rebates over a period of years. That first payment comes due in this fiscal year. That's $500,000 of that new revenue that we have already pledged. So the other thing is that as we're losing students, we don't necessarily lose it in the year that it's kind of a rolling 3-year average when it comes to GSA on the old formula. The old GSA formula indicates that we should expect to lose about $200,000 in state funding as a result of our enrollment declines. Now, the state of Illinois just adopted a new funding formula, and the details are just coming together. I couldn't anticipate what those revenues would exactly look like because a lot of the funding streams are changing. So I had to go with what I knew in terms of the old formula, and so all of my state revenues are based off of that old formula. The good news is for us in Batavia, and really the state of Illinois, everybody, is that the formula essentially promises that folks aren't going to lose money. Now, I don't know exactly where it's going to come in. I don't know if they're going to factor in our enrollment declines, which is legitimate. If your enrollment's going down, you would be losing funding. I don't know if that $200,000 is we're going to end up keeping it or if we're going to lose it, but I do expect that, generally speaking, we're going to have about the same money coming from the state as we did in the prior year, generally speaking, not of any significant difference. So we'll make those adjustments as the details become available and work off of those adjustments when we know them, and then work on future years for that. But the good news is one of those looming threats that was out there has come off the table essentially. We're not going to lose significant cash as a result of the new general state aid formula. There are other threats, and I'll threaten you with those threats later. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't, but we'll come to that at the end. The other thing that you'll notice too in this budget is that federal funding is down, and that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to federal funding. Brad has the distinction of figuring out what we're going to do with those federal funds. They are very helpful, but the reporting and the budgeting and what you can do and the requirements and the stipulations and the strings are quite onerous. And so I always like to tease Brad when he's working on that stuff because it is entertaining. But We should expect to receive some additional allocations. You'll see that federal funds will go down, but in all likelihood, we can't count on it, but in all likelihood, we'll get some more federal funds as the year goes on, because what they do is they kind of dole out their money, and then when they always hold some in reserve, and if there's any left, they'll give additional allocations and additional doles if they have the cash. So we'll probably get a little bit more, but that would be pledged to expenditures that we certainly have to spend because of all the strings that are attached. In terms of expenditures, those actually go up by 3.1%, but it depends on how you count. We don't have the audit complete from last year, and there's a lot of stuff, especially with regard to salaries and benefits and adjustments that the auditors make. So that number is actually really less, but that's the number that I have to work off of right now. We'll know more about our AFR in the coming months. We'll get an idea what that will look like in October, probably finalizing that in November or December of this year, which we'll report to the board. Salaries, though, the good news about salaries is we've held that at a 0.3 increase with the retirements and staffing reductions. Now, if we get those additional federal funds, in all likelihood, those monies will be spent on salaries and benefits, so salaries will go up from what I'm reporting right now, in all likelihood. But the reason why this budget works as well as it does is because we're managing our salaries and our benefits. We've had a good year with regard to that. Benefits overall, as you know, we've made some adjustments to our medical insurance plans. We actually see a decline in medical insurance premiums as a result of the changes to the plans. It nets out at 1.7%, or about $200,000 less than what we paid in benefits in the year prior. And the reason why so I'm projecting a surplus of $1 million, just a little bit less than $1 million in this fiscal year. I was targeting a surplus. I believe that we were going to have a surplus of about $500,000 last we spoke. At one point about 2 weeks ago, I was commiserating with Steve in his office that I was looking for an additional $500,000 because I thought we were going to be in deficit. But that's just how quickly this stuff moves. There's a lot of movement this time.
He was confident he would find it, I want to add.
I was, and I did, and actually I found more. So there was a $1 million swing in totality, but that's just how much some of this stuff can move in a given time frame.
He was using the Illinois math standards to get a...
This surplus, though, we can't expect that it's going to continue in the future because we have essentially two reprieves right now. We've got a reprieve in terms of the Chromebooks, where we're not paying for basically a payment plan for Chromebooks right now in this particular fiscal year. But that's coming next year. We're going to have to replace the Chromebook fleet that's aging and is end of life. And the other thing is that we're not likely going to continue to see decreases in medical insurance. That's not the norm. In fact, our norm here in Batavia is roughly about 10% a year that it increases. So we've got a lot of work to do in terms of managing that cost. But in my opinion, that's the last remaining internal threat to our fiscal health, is managing medical insurance. It's an animal that you can't really predict, and you kind of have to manage it year by year. So there's not a whole lot that we can do there. But that is the last remaining threat. With our employment contracts, with our department budgets, we're able to contain them to inflation at this point. So it lives within our revenue growth, by and large. There's some question as to whether or not that will be the case for salaries next year. We're banking on a lot of retirements and to make ends meet in fiscal 19, but we're not there yet. We're not going to worry about that too much. There's still a lot that can happen between now and then. So we can add to our fund balance this year, which we desperately need to do. Our fund balance is dangerously low. It is not where it's supposed to be, and the state board docks us essentially every year in their grade of our finances, primarily because of that relatively low fund balance. So we'll make some progress there, but can't assure you that the progress will continue in future years. We need to continue to be diligent. And of course, like I said earlier, I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't scaring you. The two external threats that remain out there are the property tax freeze, which the legislature talked about considerably and the governor talked about considerably this year. Who knows as to whether or not that may or happen to come to pass. Your guess is as good as mine, but if it did, our budgets live within inflation, and if there is no inflation and there's a property tax freeze, then that obviously is going to be a real problem. The second thing that could potentially happen, and they've been talking about this for as many years as I've been doing this, is the potential of a pension cost shift. So shifting that normal cost, or that $15 million that the state board is paying for our salaries, our pensions, shifting that responsibility back to local school districts. If that were to happen, I would assume it would be phased in, but it would be considerable. It would be somewhere between $5 and $8 million a year in terms of cost. So that obviously would have a very profound impact on our budget, but who knows what will happen with that. But by and large, we're in good shape. We're doing well. I mean, there's always issues to deal with, and there's always things that are coming up, but we're in good shape. And I'm proud of the work that we've been doing in this district in terms of focusing on strategic priorities, and we can continue to in the future. Any questions that I can answer for you?
No, you've done an incredible job, and I really value how you keep us informed and work diligently on the behalf of the district to keep us financially healthy and bring us bad news and make it palatable.
Yeah, if you ever need to pick me up, come see me.
All right, so, and nobody has any questions, then I would entertain a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2018 budget as presented.
Second.
Moved by Locke, second by Lowe. Casey, could you please call the roll?
Katie Barr.
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes.
Gessler.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
Drum.
Yes. All right, that concludes the business part of our meeting. We do have John closed session tonight. It's 20 after. How do you feel about that?
I would like to, personally, I would rather hold off to another, we have 2 meetings next month, and I know we're adding things to it. But for what the topic is for, I'd rather have that all 7 board members are there
Are you
present.
guys okay with that?
Yes.
All right, then we are actually, Chris, you okay with
Yeah,
tabling that
I'm fine with
next one? All right, the Doc mentioned we're actually going to table our closed session tonight.
Would you like a 6 o'clock start time or tack it on to the end of a board meeting?
I would love a 6 o'clock start time. What do you guys
prefer
think?
6.
Can you poll the board? I mean, I think 6 o'clock?
What's
Earlier
easier?
than later?
6 o'clock start time?
Yeah, from what we know about it, I mean, 1 hour should be enough.
Yeah, we
Funny.
can always, if John, if we don't feel like we had enough time for discussion, we could always add
Dr. Hitchens is
It's my
just gonna be
evaluation.
okay. I know. No, I'm fine with that. 6 o'clock?
1 hour should be.
1 hour.
1 hour?
Is
Okay.
it October 3rd?
Whichever one.
Is it homecoming week?
Yeah, October 3rd is homecoming week.
That's
so
what we'll do.
That week?
that week.
So let's schedule it for the 18th, and then if we need to
That's
add it,
Freshman
we'll
That's
November.
freshman tree conference is that day.
17th.
The
thank you.
17th. Chris can't do the 17th.
The third, no, the 3rd is cross
Oh,
country
the 3rd.
conference.
No,
So
the
the
17th is okay?
Yes, 17th should work.
Awesome. And then if you could just let Jen Dryden know. All right, then that would end our business tonight. I'm going to move on to administration comments, but I'm going to skip over you if you'd like while you, all right?
I'm ready.
She can multitask with the rest of them.
So Chris, during his student ambassador comments, talked about the fundraiser that the Geneva and Batavia students together will be benefiting Bulldogs Unleashed, Chip In, and...
Wait, so the Geneva students are supporting our two...
That's too funny.
So they have a different t-shirt.
Wait a minute. How did we manage that?
We totally already won.
I know, it's a win-win-win. So
Who are they?
they're competing to see which...
Warriors is their charity.
They're competing to see which districts can raise the most funds for their charities.
Yes.
Got you. Okay,
So-
I was a little confused.
So if anybody wants, just let me know your size. I will pick you up a shirt.
And how much
this
are
week.
those shirts?
They're $10. I will buy them for you.
10 or 15?
15.
What's
15.
Wait a minute, how much?
20.
Unless you know Lisa, apparently.
So
she can get
the
it.
story on the website's at 10.
I'm buying mine from Lisa.
So
Are they being sold, Joanne, are they being sold this weekend at the game?
They are being sold during the school day, I think like Thursday night at school. I don't know, I would assume they're being sold at the game, I don't know 100% for sure, that's not on the question.
They are being they're being sold via lunches and Thursday nights during the next football dinners.
Yes, but I don't know about Friday nights, not on the.
Yes, it is being sold Friday night. This game and next game.
okay, we're gonna just pretend I didn't mention that. I had the wrong dollar amount, but I'll help.
Well, it changed tonight.
It changed. Okay, because I did read $10.
Late breaking news.
Okay.
I think that's a very good, Lisa, So that's a common mistake. Most of our shirts are $10, but maybe
It
because
was,
these are.
it was actually in the
for cheer.
article, but
Yeah.
Sue said she updated it.
All right.
But that wasn't my only comment. So I did want to also talk about, we have strategy, we're pretty successful here in this district. I would say that's an understatement. And we have some strategies that help us to achieve the success for our students. We have one of our major strategies is to have a quality staff, and the way that they operate together is to work in highly functional teams. So I just wanted to highlight today, we had some training all day today for administrators and teachers to learn how to work in those professional teams. And from all of the chatter after the meetings, I think it went really well. They, just to say that you're going to work in a team, you just don't put people in a room and say, oh, there you go, you're a team, let's work. But if they're trying to help students to learn and grow, they need some training as well on how to engage in those discussions in their team meetings. So that was all day today, all day tomorrow. So thank you to all the principals and the administrators and the teachers that gave up their day to attend that training.
Awesome. All right, John, that's where you want to start tonight?
Sure, I was slowly putting in that date, so it took me time. Sorry. I just wanted to reiterate what Nan had said earlier in the day about the Hall of Honor, and especially for anybody listening out there in TV land. It's a very nice showing of to honor these individuals, alumni and friends and former staff. So feel free to come. They put on a nice show. It's a nice introduction. The food is also good, especially the treats from the culinary students from the high school who will be doing that part. We took a building tour last week, I think it was. Very informative. This time the admin had invited some staff members throughout who wanted to come see what's going on, to give them an eye-opening on really what's going on, so that someone's just not sitting behind a desk or in a cubicle and seeing what their work really does. And I think everyone that went was very appreciative of it and had a better understanding of it. I talked to a couple of them and they said they really enjoyed it. I want to thank Tony again for the budget. I know it's a hard thing, and with all the uncertainty that finally came across, I'm still, with Springfield, with us being one of the last ones with property taxes and all on, until that changes, it's a rough road ahead still. I want to thank everyone here at RJAC and the board for a good workshop today, and for everybody getting their information out, and thank everybody who came and talked today to us, and the emails that we get, that we do listen, and it's very appreciative to find out what's going on out there, the pros and the cons of everything. So I do thank you for that, and that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. Bob?
Anybody who's familiar with the phrase drinking water from a fire hose, still pretty new to this board. Every day it's always learning, always growing. John mentioned the school trip, and it was amazing to get around to all the buildings and really see how much our students, our teachers, our administrators, how much everything is all part of a big community. In each one of the buildings, there was some aspect of community was brought in, whether it was Boy Scouts helping build a courtyard, whether it was private donations from the community helping a memorial garden get made. I mean, there is so much going on in so many of these buildings, and was part of my first committee meeting this past week, which was also the total fire hose thing. The budget, thank you so much for making it digestible for people who aren't living in the financial world. There's so many talented people in this district, from the students all the way up to the top of the administration, that do such an amazing job for all of us. So thanks, and hopefully it slows down someday.
Thanks, Bob. Tina? She just said no, by the way, don't tell on it slowing down.
I don't really have anything. I hope homecoming week coming up is such a really fun time in this district. Definitely a time where you see our community come together and just have a really great week. So I wish a happy homecoming week, and I think that's about it.
Most of what I wanted to say has already been said. Had a blast going on the building tours. That's one of my favorite days of the year, just to get out and see all the innovation and everything that's going on in our schools. It just never ceases to amaze me. There's a lot going on as far as fall sports, whether it's cross country or soccer or football or band. Get out there, see your Bulldogs, support them. They're doing a lot of awesome things. I've been going out and seeing a lot of things, and if you see me out in the community, say hi. That's it.
Thanks, Chris, too.
A lot of it's already been said, but I just wanted to reiterate what John had said about Hall of Honor and Nan and Joanne being here. Both John and I are on the committee, and the Hall of Honor is such a special, special way to honor some Batavia citizens, staff, everyone involved in Batavia. And if you've ever were a student of John Heath's, affected by band, he's being honored. You might want to consider coming out and supporting him and honoring him. He's one of the people. But on the main homepage of bps101.net, there's information on how to get your ticket for the Hall of Honor event, and talks about all the honorees and what their accomplishments are. And it's pretty amazing, some of the people we have that have come from Batavia. It's worth taking a look at. I also want to thank the principals, the teachers, the students that we met along the way on our building tours. It is one of the best days of the year that we go on these tours. It gets us out there and we get to see what's going on in the classrooms, and it's so much fun. And I also have a special interest in seeing some of the stuff as a foundation member, for the BFE member. We got to see the climbing wall that we gave the big grant to, and a lot of the other things within the classrooms. And so it was really neat to see a lot of the stuff that was going on in the classroom. Kind of like what Bob talked about, the giving back. It's just amazing what happens in Batavia. It's really a special place. So I'm glad to be part of it. So. And hope everyone has a great homecoming. So have a great week.
Thank you, Sue. Tina just reminded me that you want to do one more shout out to Braden for his awesome hurricane victim fundraiser.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot to thank
We
you.
were all really
That's
excited.
awesome.
So Braden, if you're watching, thank you so much for coming in. And on a slightly personal note, Tina and I were both pouting because we decided that this full-time job thing really interferes with some of the most awesome things we do as a board member. So we were both disappointed to miss the building tours, because that is always a really fun event. And I would like to do a shout out to my board members tonight. Apparently I'm shouting out to everybody. It was clumsy, but we did, I feel like, a really good job of focusing what we were trying to do and being strategic and visionary in the work that we were doing. So let's keep it up. Thank you guys so much. And that is all I have. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gaspar, second by Locke. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.